This show is furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.
Let us be your
Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is Karl Gerber on the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, broadcasting from the hills of Studio City, California, watching as dusk turns to night, and I don't see very many lights blinking on the 101 freeway. Well, this is an unusual show, and it's been a very unusual week that obviously presents grave issues for the workplace. But before we get started, I wanted to share something with you. You know, there's dating in the era of the coronavirus. There must be. Dads don't have to worry about whether their daughters will be groped on dates. With the 6-foot distancing order, that just isn't going to happen. Well, I don't know how good that one was. So it's pretty hard to write and cast comedy when you're laying people off and you're self-quarantining as a responsible citizen like I've been doing this week trying to stop the spread. You know, we've, at the Employment Lawyers Group, tried to use all kinds of new technologies to keep the employees working from home. And that's been a challenge. It's taken up a lot of my week. And I just wasn't able to put together the usual show. And I even thought of maybe not doing a show, but, you know, the station promised me 2 rolls of toilet paper if I did this show. I imagine a really thick roll. I mean, not necessarily Remus Elm size of 14 inches, but at least 6 or 8 inches. And when the station dropped off the 2 rolls at my front door, I was a little disappointed. Had toilet paper shrunk, or had it been so long since I'd seen toilet paper, I just didn't have my bearings. Well, that's what we've been thinking about lately this week. It's not been a good one. And one thing I want to mention, because I've got employees in all areas of the workforce, you know, I hear all the calls coming in this week from people that need to have a lawyer help them, and I'm going to share with you some of the issues I've been hearing as they call in. But one of the things I'm wondering about, and I want to take this time to talk about it because this is not going to be the usual comedy show, and I think it's a very real issue. We have something called the Retail Association, and I'm wondering why they haven't taken it upon themselves to create some dynamic data advising consumers which goods are available and where. You know, that's something that could be helping, because going into a retail environment, especially one with 500 customers and employees inside, is the best way to increase the spread. So you're bringing home the virus on your clothes and plastic bags, and a worthless trip just to go out looking for toilet paper or a carton of milk when you're not going to find it is not a good idea. And I'm worried about the employees I have who are working in the Walmarts and the Targets and the supermarkets, because they're really doing the battle for us. And, you know, just by way of example, last week I saw some guys in Target. That was the last time I went out. It was Friday, and one guy in back of me had a very large pack of condoms, and presumably they were imported. He could have ordered them online, but somebody else had 1 bottle of wine. So I don't quite get some of this. Some of these trips are really unnecessary, and we need to just stop this. So tonight we will actually be taking calls on this show, and if you have some opinions about hoarding and whether we have incompetent leadership on various levels who are causing these problems, you know, this is the United States, and our country is being shut down by a virus, and that's just not American. We shouldn't be having this problem. If you want to talk about that, you should call 800-222-5222. If you think there needs to be better leadership in advising you where the goods are, how you can get them, what you can't get, or if you think the government should be airdropping toilet paper, I'm serious. Call in 800-222-5222. We are taking live calls tonight. We do this once a quarter. 800-222-5222 if you want to talk about the situation, if you have some advice, too, because, AM is a public service, and that's what we want to do. Okay, so this week I've got some calls at the office, and I'm going to let you know that all the calls for all 15 of my offices are coming into my cell phone. I decided to do that because I want to get the calls. They're legal matters, they're important matters, and I have a family, and I don't want the landlines ringing because people call looking for an employment lawyer all hours of the day or night. I'm not kidding. I mean, yesterday it looked like the calls went on until 2 a.m. They stopped. They started again at 6 a.m., and that's the nature of my business. So if you do have a real employment problem, my wife is actually manning the phone right now. You can call at 877-525-0700. We are working remotely, and you should know that we're limited to cases for really losing a job, wrongful termination. We can't just get on the phone and talk about some of these coronavirus laws. We're going to talk about those tonight on the radio. So 877-525-0700, unpaid wages. Maybe you're afraid a statute of limitations is going to lapse. 877-525-0700 for a sexual harassment case or a work injury case. We are actually taking cases and doing our best at the Employment Lawyers Group to work. So the issues I've got this week that I found interesting and kind of coronavirus related were I had a man call in who didn't want to come to work because he was behaving safely. He had a runny nose, and he thought that if you have a runny nose, you shouldn't go to work, which is one of the advisories and one of the symptoms of possibly having the coronavirus. And he got fired because he said, I don't want to come to work, I've got a runny nose. So the question is that wrongful termination? Because wrongful termination exists if someone is fired for exercising a legal right, which does include safety, health issues. So the issue there is interesting because he is trying to behave safely, and then the question is maybe the company isn't trying to behave safely. And normally, if someone has a runny nose and they can't come to work, really there's no statute, no law that applies to every employee in California that would handle that situation. You can use Labor Code 246-ish sick days if you miss work, but those generally require a doctor's visit, and they're limited. And so a runny nose is not really what even that would apply for. But these days, if someone is trying to take precautions, which they definitely should, that's what you do as a responsible person. You don't go to work if you're exhibiting these symptoms, especially now, and you believe they're going to infect your workforce, and you're fired for that. Normally, it's kind of like a no-call, no-show. You don't have any sick days, but maybe now that's wrongful termination. Something to think about. I had another one where he didn't want to have a thermometer test over his forehead. There's some sort of a thermometer that they're able to sort of wave at you before you start work at some employers, and that determines if you have a fever. And obviously now, if you have a fever, especially a high one, that could be a symptom of the virus. You shouldn't go to work. And he initially said that he did not want this thermometer waved over his forehead. And I asked him, well, was there going to be contact with his forehead? And he said, yes. And I said, well, if you're claiming that your employer is making you possibly get infected because they're swiping something across your forehead that's been over the foreheads of your coworkers, that would be a complaint about an unsafe and unhealthy workplace. And if you complained about that, that could be wrongful termination. But he said that it wasn't the fact that it was on his forehead and making contact with his forehead. He just didn't like the fact they were taking his temperature. And so he didn't express to his employer that they were subjecting him to something that he felt was unsafe or unhealthful. And because he didn't express that, it was not wrongful termination. So you need to express to your employer what you think the health and safety risk is, and then it becomes a question of whether it's a reasonable one, especially these days. When we come back, we're going to talk about some more examples like that, but I also know the way these call-in situations work. A lot of times people start calling in 20 or 30 minutes, so that's okay. We're taking calls tonight, 800-222-5222, but if you've got a case, you want to sue your employer, the courts are closed in most counties. Kern is not completely closed. L.A. is till April 19th. San Diego is. Orange County is mostly. But we are still available to start new lawsuits at the Employment Lawyers Group. So call 877-525-0700. Maybe you think you got the coronavirus through work. You want to file a workers' comp case. We're going to try to prove that it happened through work. 877-525-0700. If you're owed wages, your employer hasn't paid you. I'm getting a lot of calls about people who haven't got their final checks after being laid off. We're going to talk more about that when we come back, because there are some issues that have been created by the situation we're in and people not getting checks right away. 877-525-0700 if you think you've got a case for wrongful termination. So feel free to call. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We'll be back in a minute to talk about more of these labor law issues and the new federal law that is getting enacted about pay if you have the coronavirus.
Social distancing is a great way to stay safe. AM 790 KABC is the best way to stay informed. Stay safe, stay informed. AM 790 KABC.
Let us be your lawyer.
Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber, a real workplace lawyer licensed in California, Texas, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. Tonight, broadcasting from home in the hills in Studio City, and I see some flickering lights now from my view, but a lot fewer flickering lights than I would normally see on the freeway and along Ventura Boulevard and all the rest. So, guys, what I'm really wondering about for all those people moving on to maybe their second or third dates these days, I mean, how's that makeout session going to work if they're both wearing masks? Well, if you're listening to the Karl Gerber with the K channel on YouTube, maybe you can see the thumbnail that shows two people in an Asian country actually kissing when they're wearing their masks. So I guess where there's a will, there's a way. But back to labor law. Before we broke, we were talking about some of the kinds of calls I've received this week about employees and the coronavirus. And we're talking about some of them that are potential wrongful termination issues. And this is one of these times in the quarter where we're going to take live calls. So if you want to talk about an issue with what's going on with the virus and employment law, you may call 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. If you think the system is broken down and the government should be helping us get our food and we shouldn't be going through all these online services to get our food and, where's the bread, where's the toilet paper, where's the dairy, 800-222-5222. Those are issues that relate to labor and some of the employees who I represent. All right, so we talked about one case with the man with the thermometer and how he didn't complain that it was touching his skin, and one of the issues becomes if your employer is subjecting you to something unsafe, is it better just to call OSHA or is it better to call a private law firm? I'm going to actually tell you it's better to call OSHA. You want to get the problem fixed. There are some penalties that a private lawyer like me can get, and the employee gets 25%, the government gets 75% if there's an unsafe workplace or an unsafe issue going on. So you can call 877-525-0700. We're actually answering phones, even though it's the coronavirus. We're all working from home. I let the office do that starting on Tuesday. We left on Monday. That was the responsible thing to do, and I'm surprised that a lot of law firms didn't. So 877-525-0700 in California, 877-525-0700 for Real Workplace Lawyer. Everyone this week has been hearing about the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act that offers sick leave and family leave. We're going to talk about that, but I want to talk about one more of these calls I got this week. One of them was from a welder who didn't feel safe coming into work, and he, I guess, was feeling that people would be touching steel or whatever he's welding and the coronavirus could be on it. But I asked him what he was doing with the welding and where he was welding it, because there's some industries that have to keep running. You know, the order shuts down a lot of industries, but it doesn't shut down agriculture, and he was welding for agriculture, and I was thinking, I don't know. I mean, this is one of these ones where the government wants agriculture to continue, and it's pretty important. And so if you're feeling that you could be exposed, maybe this is one of these times the employer could just let the employee not work, but the issue becomes who else is going to do the job. Because if you feel your workplace is unsafe and you can't work there and you tell your employer it's that, normally you can go sue for wrongful termination. If you're fired, you might even be able to sue for quitting your job. We do that too. It's called constructive wrongful termination. You've probably heard me say before, I don't like talking about new laws for several reasons. One is anyone can read the text of them, but as an experienced lawyer, I've learned that the text is virtually meaningless because it's about how the courts interpret the law, and it's about all of the strange arguments that the defense bar will start to make on the new law, and the same with the plaintiff's bar. So just because a law is in the books, it doesn't mean a lot. And I'm not a lawyer generally where you go to me and you come in my office and I give you legal advice. I don't do that. I'm taking cases that are ready to go if someone has been fired or they're owed wages or maybe a work injury or sexual harassment. And so I don't charge people $250 or $500 or whatever it is for a consultation in the office, and I don't like to do that for a lot of reasons. I think you can give a lot of advice and it isn't worth a dime, because I can tell people in one or two seconds almost, I want to say, that whether or not they have a case. Really, if you cannot let me ask the right questions in a minute to figure out if you have a case, and you're talking too much. But it will not take me more than a minute. I've probably screened at this point 1 million new client calls, and I'm not kidding. And that's why I'm the one answering the phone for the whole office now. I'm the owner of the law firm. I thought that was the responsible thing to do when I sent the employees home, but I also think I'm the only one that can get through all the calls. We were up to more than 200 new client calls a week before this whole coronavirus thing. So if you do need to call, it's 877-525-0700, 877-525-0700 for Real Employment Lawyer, 877-525-0700. We've heard there's something called the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which is supposed to offer sick leave and family leave. Yeah, it is going into effect on April 3rd, so it actually is not in effect now, and the question is it going to be retroactive, which means does it go back to now and start covering you? And I'm not really prepared to say yes or no on that on the air. I would hope that interpreted to be retroactive because April 3rd is a long time. Each one of these days this week is another, oh, God, God knows how many people coming down with this. What are we up to now in California? Close to 300 reported cases. So April 3rd is a long time, and a lot of people have been laid off this week, and a lot of people have been fired, and businesses closed. So I don't know why this isn't in effect until April 3rd. This is the federal law, and it covers employers with up to 500 employees, but employers with 50 or fewer have exceptions. So I don't understand why it covers employers up to 500 employees. What about more than 500? So what is this, an exception to big business? I don't know. And it says that 25 or fewer are not obligated to reinstate an employee to their previous position. So again, as you can see, there are all kinds of exceptions. And, if this goes on for 6 months, which it might, I can't imagine employers that won't be able to reinstate. And I have sympathy for employers. I am one, and it's not just that I sue them, but I think some of these laws are not fair to employers. And this one, I was trying to say that if an employee is out for months and months and months and, maybe the business has changed, there's not going to be reinstatement. And the problem I'm seeing is now that everyone is learning how to work from home, a lot of jobs are going to be eliminated. It's very much now that we're on Zoom conferencing, everything's on the shared drive, on the network, a lot of paper is just going away. And I think that's going to be an issue when this coronavirus quarantine is over with, that jobs are simply eliminated. So under this federal act, which we're going to talk about when we come back also, because that's one of the main laws. It's supposed to help employees if they get sick. It gives them 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave and up to 12 weeks of emergency paid family leave. Question is, who's supposed to pay for this? The emergency paid sick leave are for employees unable to work or telework due to a need for leave because the employee is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine order. That may include people that are over 65 that were told to stay home. I really think that was last weekend. Or people who have been advised by a health care provider to self-quarantine due to concerns related to the virus. Someone experiencing symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis is covered, or caring for an individual subject to quarantine, or someone who's been advised to self-quarantine, someone caring for a child if their school is closed, and other conditions that the federal government may specify later. So that's so far part of the law. So again, I am a real workplace lawyer. I'm trying to cover new laws that are being enacted on the spot very quickly without the usual legislative debate and history that I could read about to really understand what the intent of the law is and how it might play out. But I do want to let the listeners know that I'm trying to provide a service, talk about some of the laws that are going to apply. Go to the Karl Gerber with a K channel 2 weeks ago. I think it's episode 101. We covered coronavirus laws before these laws started getting specifically enacted. There's paid sick leave, FMLA, things like that. So, again, I can be reached at 877-525-0700. The hours we're answering the phone is much more expansive because they're coming into my house. 877-525-0700. If you have an ordinary case, not coronavirus 2, you were fired because of maybe a medical condition that doesn't have anything to do with this, 877-525-0700 for an unpaid wage, perhaps class action lawsuit, controlled standby pay. That's what I do a lot of. But most of our cases involve a medical condition that got someone fired, sexual harassment, unpaid wages, and some work injuries. So we're going to talk about the WARN Act, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about, too, when we come back, and more on this federal law. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC. Karl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, will be back in just a moment.
We are lawyers. You can count on us, and baby,
Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, broadcasting from the hills of Studio City, where now it is dark outside. This is Karl Gerber, the workplace lawyer, licensed in 4 states. And, you know, there's just something I was kind of thinking about, and I woke up and I was having this dream, and in-rate dating for seniors these days, you know, these days when we've got this whole thing where we're confined to our homes, well, how is that working out for you? I don't want to be hearing you're trying to meet up with a new match, although from 6-foot distance, presuming you could see that far at 7 a.m. when the retail stores open up specially for seniors. Sorry, folks, tonight is not comedy. We're talking about laws, labor laws in particular, that pertain to the coronavirus. It was hard to put together anything this week, and I thought that really everyone wants to know what these new laws are, and I'm the one that's supposed to know because I'm the employment lawyer on the station. So we were talking about the Federal Families First Act and how this is going to take effect in April 3rd, and how emergency paid sick leave can be up to $511 a day or $51.10 total, obviously, depending on how much you make. And the employee will be paid 2/3 of their full rate of pay, up to $200 a day, and $2,000 when leave is taken to care for others, which will happen if you're caring for a senior who is under the order not to leave their home, or for children because of school closures. And this is leave in addition to any other paid leave which an employee already has and is entitled to. And this is the law that is on the federal level, and it's going to apply for people who have worked at least 30 calendar days for their employer. Not very long for this to start coming into effect. Usually with the Family Medical Leave Act, which is the one on episode 101 to be found on the Karl Gerber with the K channel on YouTube, that's usually the one that I thought was going to cover the coronavirus because it's a serious medical condition. At the time I did that show, I hadn't thought about how with some people it does cause respiratory damage for life, and if that's the case, then it becomes a disability, and it's covered that way. So a lot has been discussed about this law that is not in effect yet. There are no cases testing it, and we're just going to have to see how it is going to play out. And it says that there were some debates between the one in Congress and the one in the Senate, and allegedly, I'm trying to bring you the most current coverage. I've been keeping track of this every day this week because I knew I'd be doing this show, but this federal law, now they're saying the first 10 days rather than the 14 days will be unpaid. So there's still some issues with this law. We have a caller, and this is a show where we're taking callers, so I think we should put him through. Hi, are you there?
Hi, this is Carol.
Hi, Carol. And you're calling from Hollywood, I heard?
West Hollywood.
West Hollywood. Oh, a place where there are a lot of cases right now. So what's on your mind tonight?
First of all, I listen to your show all the time, and I love it, number one. Number two, I want to know if it's possible to do a class action lawsuit against the administration for negligence for letting this virus go this far and hurting all these people.
Well, I think we all know that's my political belief. I think that this could have been stopped if there was communication with China. It could have been stopped, and there could have been test kits, and there could have been masks, and a lot of things here a lot sooner. And the federal government is unquestionably to blame for this, and they're saying that it's the state's problem, which normally health and safety issues are a state problem, but this is a national issue. And the one who I think has actually stepped up to the plate the most on this is Governor Newsom. He's the one that says there's going to be a ban in California, leave your house, stop the spread. So in terms of whether there can be a class action lawsuit, there's generally immunity against a governmental agency for causing problems. If a government exposes their citizens to an unnecessary virus, I don't think we can sue them. And I don't think that a $1,000 check or a $1,200 check or whatever it's going to be is going to help anyone, because people are losing their jobs right and left. Most employers are kind of shutting down. And the calls I'm getting this week, which are really unfortunate, are I haven't got my final paycheck and I don't know where it is.
Yeah. So sad.
It's horrible.
So they have immunity, is what you're saying.
Well, that's usually how the government is immune to all acts with exceptions. And, you know, if someone's in a car accident, it's a government car that caused the car accident, there are exceptions. But governmental immunity is a very challenging situation to be in, and I think that there is a way to deal with this in November, maybe.
I agree with you. I think this man, you know, gets away with everything. I just had to throw that in. And it's another thing that he's getting away with. But I appreciate it. I really like your show a lot.
Well, thanks for listening. And, Carol, I hope the situation gets better, and best of luck to you with your health.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And if anyone else wants to call in, and I'm willing to get political tonight because I feel this situation is deplorable. This is the United States. We should not be scrounging for milk or bread or masks. I represent a lot of people in the healthcare industry. I represent most of the surgical nurses in Kern County. I've represented in class actions. I've got cases here, and the healthcare workers are my clients, and I think it's very unfair that they don't have enough gowns, they don't have enough masks, and this is exactly the kind of thing the federal government should be procuring, and I don't understand why we're in the United States. Why are we in this position? It's just absolutely absurd, and the problem I'm seeing is everyone's losing their jobs, and they were saying early on in the week, well, it's going to start off with the hotel industry and travel, which, by the way, L.A., our tourism industry is huge, and L.A. is based on tourism, and it's based on the port, and the port is shut down. So we're going to have just a fun economy here in L.A. They said, well, first it's going to start in tourism, then it's going to go down. There's going to be 4 waves. And this, as far as I'm concerned, the labor market went down from Monday to Tuesday. It was all over with. And how many people are going to be filing unemployment claims? How many have lost their jobs? How many are going to call me? I can't even predict. And the problem is a lot of people are going to call me, and a lot of people are going to want representation, but I can't sue these restaurants because they're gone. They're out of business. And I've got these calls where people are calling me at 877-525-0700. They're telling me I can't get the name of my employer. I work for a restaurant, and I can't get in there, and they won't give me a pay stub. And that's a problem a lot of times because the name of the company is different than the name on the door, the name of the restaurant. And so I told them, look, just go to unemployment. I think that unemployment, from what I've seen, they'll find your employer. They'll figure out who they are. Just get your claim in. Don't worry about it if you don't have a pay stub, you don't have the exact name. You're going to give them the address, and the EDD, the unemployment office, will find that out. So, again, I do want to be called about real labor issues, but my phone, which I'm answering myself for all of my offices now at home, has just been overwhelmed with these coronavirus, very sad situations going on. And I do think it's going to be a lower wage market when this whole thing is done with. And, again, there's a lot of these laws that are being thrown around here. They're supposed to get passed to help, and what actually becomes of these laws is extremely unclear because there are exceptions, there are new versions, and just trying to keep up on who says what about each one is taxing. And, the other one I said, the WARN Act. The WARN Act is a mass layoff one where if the company's big enough people are being laid off, there has to be 60 days notice, so you have to pay people for 60 days. But, and this one I have to say I agree with. Newsom said if the California WARN Act, not the federal one, is not going to apply to coronavirus layoffs and shutdowns because that's an unforeseen circumstance. And the unforeseen circumstance has always been an exception to the WARN Act. I had a case many years ago where all of a sudden the company found out it wasn't going to get funding and they were shutting down. And that was the issue in litigation, whether their lack of funding was an unforeseen circumstance. This is back in 1997. I think I had 70 people or something in a WARN Act case. And that has always been the WARN Act. Unforeseen circumstances is an exception to the WARN Act, so nobody gets 60 days of pay in the WARN Act. And I think this situation to us, maybe not the federal government, it was very unforeseen. We didn't think a week ago or 10 days ago that we were all going to be working from home. We just had no idea. So call me at 877-525-0700. That's my office. The phone is ringing at home. Any case about loss of wages, wrongful termination, sexual harassment, 877-525-0700. If I'm grumpy when I answer the phone, it's because I'm taking like 200 calls a day. It's just crazy. And then I got everyone at work on Zoom, so I tell them we've got this person on the phone and you've got to do this, and it's actually working out on Zoom, and I think we're having a good relationship, the ones that are on Zoom. That's the only good that has come out of this. 877-525-0700 for a real employment problem. I do want to talk more about these strange laws that are coming to allegedly help people and also how they're going to impact employers. On the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, Talk Radio 790 KABC. Talk Radio 790 KABC. This is the Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm Karl Gerber, broadcasting from home high in the Studio City Hills. We've been going through some coronavirus dating examples, and we're on to segment 4. So we're really down to sealing the deal in the age of the coronavirus. You've been dating for a couple of months. You've generally kept your 6-foot social distance, but it's time to connect. I mean, really connect. I mean, even if you Lysol the bed, you're about to swab bodily fluids. You can't do it. No kissing. Wash yourself in hot water for 20 seconds afterwards. No, you're not supposed to sing the happy birthday song when you see him naked for the first time. That's for afterwards when you're washing off. That's about the most comedy I can bring to you tonight because it's been the worst week, I think, of most of our lives, unless maybe we were around in World War II and not enough of us were. We talked about the coronavirus and the laws that are just going to help, allegedly, and all the weird exceptions, and there are a bunch of them. And on the employer part of this, and I'm not just some sort of liberal Democrat. I'm not sure that's how I'd classify myself. I am an employer, too, and I believe in some conservative fiscal issues, and the only consolation the employer has for one of these is supposed to be they get 100% tax credit if they have to pay the employee wages when they're out of work. Well, I'm not sure what the drafters were thinking was so revolutionary about getting 100% tax credit for paying employee wages, because that's always been the law. If you pay your employees like us responsible employers do, and we tax them, we're able to take an 100% deduction on the payroll tax and the taxes and all the rest. So this is going to be an issue for employers. I think it's going to be very hard for anyone to comprehend these new laws about the coronavirus. They're new, and they were not debated. There weren't a lot of articles written about them. And so I just hope the employers are aware of them, and I hope that the system works. I personally think the government should be covering the wages of employees affected by this. This is a national epidemic. I don't know if it's a pandemic anymore. I have never heard of there being a situation where most of California is quarantined right now by by advice so that this doesn't spread. But it does seem like there are going to be some grave consequences for a lot of employers, and a lot of employers can't get into the building. Most of the office buildings, like rent one on Wilshire Boulevard in downtown, that one is closed. We can't go into it. Of course, we have the Sherman Oaks office, which I'm going to be the only person occupying next week, and that will be in Section 3. So if you call me at 877-525-0700, you're going to get me. There were a bunch of people that just called in on, I see, once I gave out my number. So we have Mike in El Segundo. I want to take Mike and find out what he has to say. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I sure am. Thank you. I have a lawsuit I was doing improper, and I just want to appeal to the state. I believe I have 30 days to get the paperwork and notice of appeal, or maybe even to file the appeal with Appellate Court. And one days been out because
Mike, you're cutting in and out a lot, and I don't know how much legal advice I want to give on the phone because it's not confidential.
Okay.
What county are you in?
The court's filing date's been extended because the courthouse is closed.
What county are you in?
Los Angeles County.
Okay. My information is that, now, I don't know if this is a criminal case, but it's a civil case.
It's a civil case.
Okay, it's not family law, is it?
No, this is actually an election contest.
Okay, I believe that the court on that issue is closed until April 19th. So
have the filing dates been extended, or can I do I?
Appellate court dates are very tricky, and there's no such thing as an extension. I would do what you can to try to file it. We are filing things through the attorney service electronically, and they are being filed. I think you need to try to file it. I have not seen any act passed in California yet extending any dates. I think that should be done, and with the appeals, I would be very careful on that because there are no extensions on appeals. The other side can't give you an extension for certain briefs. I don't know which brief it is, but the date to file an initial appeal, that date is just doesn't move. So I would talk to an appellate lawyer on that. I would not be improper. I would find out what's happening. Every day we are getting some information, and I'm really not happy that there hasn't been information from the Judicial Council of California on what we're supposed to do, and federal courts either. It just was very vague that the Superior Court in L.A. is closed. I was on a court call in San Diego on Friday. I found out, those courts were all closed. So, yeah, but I would not miss the deadline. I think there's a way to file it, or at least attempt to file it, and if the court is not open, that becomes an issue. Some people have been saying that a lot of this is treated as what they call a court holiday, and if it's a court holiday or a Saturday or a Sunday that the deadline falls on, then that deadline is extended to Monday. But I would not take chances. I would file the paper. I just wouldn't wait to see if you can get some kind of relief through something passed.
So does that mean I would mail it in then and ask them to, it's put in a self-addressed stamped envelope and then to mail me the stamp?
This is an appeal, and lawyers have to do these things electronically now, and I don't know if there's an exception for improper. I would get a lawyer on this. I think there's a lot of ways for it to get rejected or to miss the date. But that's as far as I can really go here. I would try to meet the date. There may be an issue where all this whole period of closure is a court holiday. I know that the Superior Court is closed. I'm not yet sure on whether the Appellate Court is closed, so that is a different court.
Okay, and I spoke with someone at the Appellate Court before they closed the courts. I was told I have to file the appeal with the Superior Court, and then they create a case number and forward it to the Appellate Court.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions you have. I think it's really beyond what I can get to on the show, and there are papers that are done in the Superior Court, and then there are papers in the Appellate Court, and it's very complicated. I would not try to do this without a lawyer. I think it's going to fail one way or another, but that's really as much as I can say on this. Thank you for calling, and reach out to someone that does appellate law on Monday.
Thank you. You've been very helpful. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm always reluctant to give legal advice because it's the kind of thing that you need to sit with someone for 2 hours. You need to look at the papers. You need to figure out what kind of case it is, what county it is. it's not like there's one answer for a lot of these things, and I'm the kind of guy that doesn't miss deadlines, and there are a lot of people out there that are willing to be fast and loose, and we're on a court holiday because it's the coronavirus, and I'm not going to file my papers. And, we filed a lot of papers last week, and I don't know for sure if anything got filed on Friday, but I know we had things filed like Wednesday or Thursday. So there's a difference between the courts not doing jury trials and the courts taking papers and the clerk's office, and every county is different, and some of the stuff is in federal court. So just in general, you guys, you got to find a lawyer that will talk to you, and I think you should pay them because you're asking them to risk their license and their malpractice policy in this. This is not what we're normally doing. These are very strange circumstances, and we're getting involved in situations where there could be statutes and everything, and, it's just not a good idea to let things lapse. And that's why I'm telling people when they call me, I want to talk to you if you got a case ready to go, but if you just want any things, I have a question, that's not really what I can do right now, but I have a questions, or I think that, I'm this characteristic and there are people of that characteristic, and those people in that characteristic have it better than me, and it's very vague. That kind of stuff, lawyers, when we're trying to work from home, we're trying to get our staff acclimated for working from home, we're meeting deadlines, we're dealing with a lot of weird technology, we're going to take depositions on a computer through Zoom conferencing, I'm going to do a mediation that way on April 1st. I'm going to do this stuff, I'm going to utilize the technology. It's a little bit different, but I knew this was coming, and so we got prepared last week, and we're functioning. But under these circumstances, I think clients need to understand that we only have a minute or two. We just can't get into a really detailed conversation if they're a new client and we don't even represent them yet. So, again, I've been doing it since 93. I've done more employment cases than anyone else who's practicing. So if you call me, I really can get to the point very quickly and tell you yes or no, whether it's a case, and I'm not going to charge you for it. So 877-525-0700 is the way to get me, and you can call me. We're going to be taking calls for wrongful termination, sexual harassment, unpaid wages, work injuries, and we're going to do it because we're not going out of business just because of the coronavirus. We were around for 2 recessions, and we're going to be around when this thing is over with. 877-525-0700. I'm going to find unique ways to represent people. There's going to be more technology, and we're just going to do it. 877-525-0700. If you want to get hooked up with an employee law firm that's going to be here after the virus, we're not going away. Thank you for listening to Karl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. Maybe I'll try to put some comedy together for next week. All right. This has been an evening broadcast from my house on Talk Radio 790 KABC.
This show was furnished by Karl Gerber and Employment Lawyers Group.